Hello and welcome to our recording today around physical development in the early years. My name's Martin Webster and I'm the Workforce Development Manager here in Darlington Borough Council, and I'm joined today by Tracy Rayner, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. My name's Tracy Rayner and I work for Tees Valley Sport. We're one of 43 active partnerships around England. So we're funded by Sport England, and our vision is to get as many people active as often as possible across the Tees Valley. So my role is Active Education Officer. So I predominantly work within the primary schools, promoting projects and things to get children more physically active. But as an organisation, we're very aware that early years is crucial in starting these habits early on and getting children developing these crucial key skills, which is why I've worked alongside yourself and Darlington College to really get some of these key messages across about how important physical activity is within the early years.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Tracy. So similar format to many of the kind of recordings that we do, I'm going to start playing a presentation and ask some questions to Tracy. Tracy's going to answer them and we're going to move through the presentation, and then all of our resources will be available after we've finished the recordings. So I'm just going to start the sharing of the screen now, and then we'll go on with the first question. So Tracy, I'm sure that we can all recognise that it's really important for children to be active. Can you tell us a little bit more about the recommended physical activity levels for early years children?
Yeah, so on this slide, the Chief Medical Officer from Public Health has set these guidelines. This is how much physical activity that children should do. So the first one is for children 5 to 18 years. So the expectation is that all children should aim for an average of at least 60 minutes every day. So usually this is 30 minutes during school time and then 30 minutes outside of school time. Now for early years, so that's from birth to 5 years, the aim is for 180 minutes per day. So that's children 1 to 5 years old. Now it's slightly different for babies, which I'll come on to in a moment, but it's not saying that it's got to be 180 minutes of children running round and round and round. It's just movement, little and often. Now with both of these infographics as well, it's not just getting children to do that physical activity of getting out of breath and running, it's about strength as well. So it's getting strong. So the message is it's not just about getting children doing that physical exercise, but making sure they're strong enough. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, how to get children strong, but also because otherwise we'll have all these children injured because they won't have these strong muscles and bones. So we're doing it alongside, and these infographics are quite handy because they give you a lot of information around the benefits of physical activity. So things to do with sleep, academic performance, and then just different ways you can incorporate that physical activity into your day as well. And again, we'll talk a bit more about that as we go through.
Brilliant, thanks Tracy.
So I mentioned about under ones. So it's expected that under one should do at least 30 minutes of tummy time. So you might have heard these messages through health visitors as they visited with your babies, but basically it's about doing little and often. So 30 minutes is the minimum, so the more the better with a lot of these things, the messages that we're talking about. But it's about being active in a variety of ways. So it could be, I mean, my little boy was horrendous with tummy time, and as soon as I put him on a mat, he'd scream. So it was just thinking of different ways. So if it wasn't on a mat, I'd sometimes put him on my chest, and again, it encouraged that head up, or sometimes on my legs. And as well, it's talking to your baby as you're doing it, that communication, that stimulation. But it's also just about giving them the opportunity to do some of those bigger movements of pulling, grasping, reaching for things. But yeah, minimum of 30 minutes of tummy time. But again, like I said, if they don't like it, build it up over time. So it's not saying, right, we're going to do 30 minutes in one go. You might do 30 seconds to begin with and build it up over time. So just whatever works for you and your child. And then toddlers, this is where it gets to that 180 minutes, that 3 hours of being active. But like I said, it's not getting your child just to run around for 180 minutes and think, brilliant, that's 3 hours of running. It's building it up through the day. So it might be active play you're doing. It could be that your child walks to the shops with you, takes your sibling to school. It can be any of those things. It could be that they help you tidy up, put the washing away. Movement is the key thing here. So as long as your child is moving and minimising that sort of sitting and what we call sedentary behaviour, which unfortunately is getting more and more as time's going on, but it's just making sure that the children are moving, because ultimately we're born to move. So it's just doing a variety of different activities spread out throughout the day. And then as we get to preschool levels, this is what we call 3 to 4 year olds. Again, it's that 3 hours per day. But the difference here is that at least 60 minutes should be what we call moderate to vigorous physical activity. So that's when children will find themselves a bit more out of breath. They might find themselves a bit warmer. But it's a really good idea and activity, especially with this age, is talk about it. What's happening to your body? What are you noticing when you're running, when you're going to play catch, when you're that bit more active? And actually speaking to children about the heart and what your heart's doing. It's pumping that oxygen around your body to your brain. It's making your brain work more and getting some of these real key messages, because they are at 3 and 4, they do understand the changes in the body, and it's important to recognise that's what physical activity is doing. And then we can talk about the benefits later. And this is all things you can be talking with your children about.
Brilliant. That's really interesting, and things that I didn't really consider, and things that as a parent you tend to sometimes do naturally, but I guess it's really emphasizing these kind of key things, and there's real kind of guidelines that we can stick to and look at as practitioners as well as parents, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's just not being scared by the 3 hours either, because it sounds like
Yeah,
such a lot. But actually, if you just incorporate it a little and often and just think, as long as your child is moving, that's the key message. It's not about having to do that strenuous activity all the time. It's just moving, being up and moving.
And I think it's realizing that that different things constitute movement, isn't it, really? So why is movement important in the early years then, Tracy?
I mean, there's a whole host of benefits. I won't read every one. I'll let people sort of read it themselves. But there's loads of research out there about the benefits of physical activity. Because I think people instantly think it's about weight and it's about keeping a healthy weight. And it's not. It's not just about that. It's about there's cognitive benefits, like I just said, about the blood pumping round, going to the brain. It stimulates that brain development. There's a whole host of research out there for the social and emotional, how good it is for well-being, how exercise releases those happy endorphins. So if you're exercising, you're happy. That social development when you work alongside somebody, not necessarily in a team game, but if you're doing something like building a tower, you work alongside how we're doing it. As an adult, if you work alongside children in the setting or at home, you're talking to them about their activity, all that social interaction and communication, as well as developing a lot of the bone, muscle strength. And a great one for parents, it's improving. It actually has been shown to improve sleep. So if you've got children who are restless at night, not tired, overstimulated, sleep, exercise being shown. So even just doing something either before tea, after tea, just a short burst of physical activity can actually improve sleep. So there's a whole host of benefits around academic performance as children get older, in terms of that concentration, that memory retention. So it's not just about weight and about what people perceive actually a child is healthy. It's about this whole host of other benefits as well. It's important that we get the messages out there.
Amazing, and so many life skills for the children as well. I'm sure that they're learning all sorts of things as they go with their movement as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many. And I put this slide on because I think it's really important that we get these key messages out about the importance of outdoor learning. Because again, the research shows that by taking children outside, we improve the amount of physical activity they do instantly, because they just feel freer. There's more opportunities to climb, to run. There's more stimulation out there. And it's not, again, just about having children running around. You can see here the whole host of things that just by taking that learning outdoors and children outdoors, is you've got problem solving, creative thinking. You've got, again, the different stimulations, the different environment, the sensory elements of being outside. And I think with babies, it's thinking you can take babies outside. It's been shown that I think something like 10% of children, babies, are getting the fresh air, and that's outdoor stimulation that they need and the exercise. So by taking your child's mat outside on the grass, getting them reaching, grasping, that different sensory environment, it's crucial. And it just, because I think sometimes babies, we think we just put them in prams, take them around with us, but actually they still need that stimulation, that freedom, just like the preschool age. So it's really important, no matter what age, that we're giving them this access to this outdoors, fresh air. And again, it's not just about the exercise benefits. You've got the creative thinking, risk taking, which I'll come on to later, which is a crucial part of this child development, improving sleep. And really, like I said, it's just that freedom to explore. You'll get a lot more physical activity by taking children outside, because they'll naturally run, they'll naturally explore, and they generally just feel freer.
And that curiosity as a child as well, isn't it? And being able to kind of have different textures and touch different things and be able to kind of be in a really safe environment, but enjoying yourself. And you can see that kind of bright up on the face when they've got that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and you want to ask yourself, is your child glowing as they come in? Have they done that activity that's made them have that glow about them, where you know they've had a real good burst of energy? What I've done here is I've just put a bit of research. I don't want to go research heavy, but it's just a bit of research here from Sport England in the bottom right-hand corner is just about active pupils are happier and more confident. So again, that social emotional side of it. Then the top left-hand corner is a study that was done on a brain scan of students taking a test. So as you can see, the first one, which is predominantly blue, is after 20 minutes of sitting quietly, so the brain's slowly switching off. So again, that memory retention, that concentration's going. But actually, after 20 minutes of walking, the red areas are very active. The blue areas are the least active. So as you can see, that blue area's got less and less. So obviously, the cognitive benefits of moving, not even doing necessarily high intensity activity, just walking, just moving, you can see that brain stimulating again. So if we think about preschool children, we're wanting them to take things in, getting them moving, getting them doing as they're learning is going to have a lot more benefits than just having them sitting still at an activity. Then in the bottom left-hand corner is some active lives data. So Sport England do something where they ask children, and this is school children, but I think it's really relevant to early years in terms of year on year generally, the amount of children that are active is becoming less and less for that 60 minutes that I talked about in the first slide. So I think it's really crucial if we can start some of these habits in early years, getting children moving, getting them with that love of being active, a good relationship with food, all these benefits are going to influence this data when it gets to school age. And then I think it's not a surprise to anyone that actually we are in an obesity crisis. This is the latest national obesity data, which shows that 1 in 5 children at reception age, so that's at age 4 to 5, is overweight or obese. And then as we get through primary school, 1 in 3 in year 6 is overweight or obese. So again, if we can start some of these habits in the early years, getting children moving, getting them seeing the benefits to themselves of being physically active, and getting those really key crucial habits, it's been proven that children who are active early in life will hopefully continue, they'll get the skills they need to be confident and competent in sport and lead an active life as they get older. So some of these key messages, like I say, so that's why it's crucial we get some of these messages out there in early years and get these children moving.
Really important. Thanks, Tracy, for that. I've heard early years professionals talk about gross and fine motor skills before. What are they and why are they so important?
So I think with physical development, one of the key messages that I think a lot of people are unaware of is actually people generally think that fine motor, I mean, I'll talk about it in a minute, but it's our how we use our pincer movements and our fine skills in our hands, how we manipulate objects. Whereas the gross motor is a lot about the bigger movements that we have in our bodies. So physical development, we actually we develop from the head downwards. So that's why in babies that tummy time is so crucial, because we need to get strengthen those head muscles from when we're first born. And actually then you'll find the walk at the end. So they're doing all these core muscles first, they're rolling, they're turning over, then they're doing the pulling up. And then the last thing to develop would be then when they start walking. And in terms of developing, we develop from the centre outwards. So it's really important as babies, we develop that core. So like you say, through that tummy time, through the reaching, through the grasping. And then actually the last thing to develop is our fingers. Yeah, a lot of people think for a child to be developed, it's a brilliant writers and you try and get children writing from, at such a young age, when actually they haven't got the shoulder muscles and the strength in the shoulders to actually even hold a pencil, to hold a knife and fork. So you've got people trying to get, when people start first food, holding knives and forks and things, but actually if they haven't got these shoulder muscles, it's actually uncomfortable for children to be doing some of these pincer movements. So it's really important we give them as many opportunities to develop from the internal, so the core, from the inside out, and then from the top to the bottom. So I'll talk about some ways we do this and actually what these gross and fine motor skills involve. So the gross motor, like I said, is these large muscles, so including the broader movements like the walking, the jumping, the reaching, the grasping, the striking. And like we say, these gross motors are actually the foundation for developing healthy bodies and actually being able to do some of these more fine motor skills later on. So it's really important, especially in the early years, we get children moving, swinging, climbing, and really developing these core muscles. And then on the next page, how practitioners and how parents can do this at home is just by creating opportunities. It doesn't have to be onerous. You don't have to be thinking, right, what gross motor skill am I doing? It's generally just letting children have the opportunities to do some of these things. So parks are a great thing because you'll generally find when you take the child to the park, they'll generally do a lot of these gross motor skills naturally, the climbing, the swinging, and also developing that core strength. So it's really important we provide as many opportunities. And if you haven't got equipment, that's fine. Just like I say, take them out naturally. These children will be using these gross motor skills. So it's just providing these opportunities really. And then the fine motor skills, like I said, is this real precision with the small muscles in your hand. So these are what require that degree of control. So until we've really got the strength in our gross motor, the fine motor, we tend to leave to later. But there's lots of opportunities rather than pencils. You can do lots of things like here, like threading, Play-Doh, really manipulating objects with hands. So to get really developing that strength, it can be things like we can use tweezers to pincer movements, moving beads along. So lots of these things that involve using our fingers and our position, and it develops that hand-eye coordination as well, which becomes useful later on. And then the key thing is that actually developing this fine motor skill is then the hand-eye coordination is linked to that early literacy, to that writing, and to that greater degree of control. But it's important. Outside, I was thinking here, a good example is chalking. Rather than getting children to sit down and write on a chair or do some of this mark making, take it outside, get some of these big movements, painting on an easel, get children standing outside doing some of these big movements, painting fences with water or paintbrushes, and just getting these big movements going and really developing these core muscles is key, really.
Brilliant. So when we talk about movement, what are the fundamental movement skills? So
these skills are defined as a specific set of skills that involve different body parts. This can be your legs, your arms, your core. And what happens with these fundamental movement skills is these are the skills that children need to become physically literate. So that just means that they're competent, confident, they've got the knowledge and skills to be all-rounded, to do physical activity. So what we say is they're broken down into 3 different areas. So you've got stability, so that's just the way that you control your body movements. You've got locomotor, which is how you move or how you travel. And then you've got manipulation, which I talked about just then, which is that really fine kind of how you move objects. So like throwing, catching. So the real misconception here, another key message, is that people just think that children develop these skills naturally. So they might think, oh, so-and-so is just a good catcher, or he's not great at catching, or oh, he's a fantastic runner, or he's not. And it's actually a bit of misconception, because these skills, I read somewhere that they need between 240 minutes to 600 minutes each skill to be discreetly taught. And I'll go on to the skills in a minute. So it's really important that we make time as practitioners and as parents to practice these skills. And if a child's not doing it right, showing them how to do it right, and really developing the competency within these skills. Because ultimately, these are the building blocks that children will build upon. And as they get to school age and even secondary school age, they'll use these skills to participate in sport or physical activity. So one of the things that's crucial is if we can get these skills done at this early age, in early years, 0 to 5, then it's been proven that actually children who are competent in these skills go on to be successful in physical activity, even sport at school, and get to access a lot more and go on to lead active lives. Whereas one of the big barriers we find is if these children are not confident in these skills, if they can't catch, if they haven't got good balance, if they aren't good at jumping or stopping or striking, then what instantly happens is they get turned off by PE later in school life, and then they find that they can't access it. And it's that kind of, I can't do it, I won't do it, because then they haven't got these crucial key skills because they haven't learnt them. And then by the time they get to school, things are that fast paced, they end up missing out on these fundamental skills. So it really sets them up to fail later. So you might be thinking, oh, they don't need to learn to catch because they're only 2. But if we can start some of these skills really early, it'll hopefully then impact on some of this school readiness and the children's ability as they get to that school age. So I'll go through, I won't list them all, but this is that stability I was talking about. So how we move out, control and move our body. So bending, twisting, balancing. So you've just got to think about how you can stabilise your body in different ways. And then the next one is locomotor. So the way I always think about this is a locomotor engine. So it's travelling, going. So how you move, so it can be running, jumping, skipping, dodging. And if you think about it, the thing about why we do these skills and why we need to know it is because then when you come to play a game of netball later or football, you think about how you might take some of the stabilisation, so stopping, balancing, and then you might need to dodge in the game, you might need to run, you might need to jump. And then the next slide is manipulation. So then in that game of netball, you might need to throw the ball, catch the ball, you might need to shoot. So it's all making sure that we understand that why these skills are important earlier, because actually later on you might be choosing 2 and 3 skills to become competent at a game or an activity. And again, it's not necessarily we're doing it to be good at sport, but actually just to be successful in physical activity.
It's
And
key
that's the key
foundation stuff,
message.
isn't it? Really, when you think of like all of the things you mentioned there, all of the things that make up that real physicality of a human being, really, and
Yeah.
to learn them in the early years is absolutely essential. So, how does physical development link to other areas of child development?
So child development is the process every child goes through. So I think as parents, it's a lot of the time it's, oh, have they met the milestones? Who's first to meet the milestones? Who's the first out of our friends to be walking? Who's the first out of our friends to be rolling? Or what age should my child be talking? And they're called milestones. So every child goes through this. So it's learning and mastering skills. So it starts from being a baby right up to preschool age in terms of early years. So children develop skills in the 5 main areas that I'll show you below. As we click in, so the 5 key areas of cognitive development, so that's your problem solving, your thinking. Then even as a baby, your cognitive development is looking at the world around you and that in sort of taking in what's there. The social and emotional developments, that's how you make those relationships and interact with people. The speech and language development, so what do you understand, the speech, developing that language. The gross motor skills, we talked about those large movements in the muscle groups, and then the fine motor skill, which is that fine manipulation. So what's really key is that physical activity can actually develop all of these areas. So with cognitive thinking, you can be physically active while you're problem solving. Like I said, those outdoors are great for those types of things, that creative thinking. Social and emotional, working as a team, talking things through. Working together, which is where the speech and language comes in. Things like active storytelling is great. Rather than just having children listen to a story, can they act out parts of the story? Can they be characters? Getting them to hear those speech and language, the meaning of words. Can they act out what a word means? So what does it mean? When somebody's going slowly, can a child go slowly? And can they go, so you might then say, oh, they're running. What does running mean? What's it like to run? And it's just really talking, especially at this really young age, getting them to act out words, getting them to understand even some of these movement skills we talked about. What does it mean to jump? What does it mean to balance? What does it mean to twist? And it's all that development of language. And then gross motor, I'll talk about some of the activities we can do. And I talked briefly about them earlier, but it's that really opportunities for doing those larger movements and then the fine motor movements as well. So it's, like I said, physical activity can help aid child development through all of these areas. So it's actually in the earliest framework, physical activity is one of the 3 prime areas. So that shows the focus that we need to really have on physical development.
It really does, yeah. So as a parent myself, what can I or other parents or practitioners do to help a child's physical development?
Now, I'm very, very aware that I'm not the expert in terms of, I'm not a practitioner myself. I've got the kind of physical activity background, but so a lot of these ideas you might think, oh, we do that, or we can do that better, and I hope you can. And that's some of the key messages I've given you around the theory. I'm just going to show you how it can be put into practice in terms of these practical ways, but I'm not the expert in terms of this delivery element, but I'm hoping that just some of these ideas might trigger some thinking. So in terms of taking these babies outside or taking these young children that need that stimulation, I talked about it, taking that learning outdoors and thinking, if you're doing an activity, can it be done outdoors? Can I get the children moving? Like I said to you, taking it outdoors instantly, the whole host of benefits I talked about earlier around the benefits of being outdoors. So it's just thinking, even if you've got snow and rain, a lot of the concepts of people is if it's snowing or raining, it's too wet and cold. But actually, it's a different sensory environment, and there's that old saying, isn't there? It's not what is it? It's not bad weather, it's just bad clothing. So, and children, it's more us as adults that think, oh, it's raining, I can't be bothered taking them out, it's too wet and cold. But actually, children love it. Put a pair of wellies and a waterproof outfit on, and children splash in puddles all day. Snow, we don't get it very often. You get snow, get children feeling it, talking about it, that social and that communication element, and actually getting them to build things in snow, those muscles again. I just think there's so many opportunities. And even in one of the pictures here, there's a little boy doing maths. But if you're doing counting, getting them outside, counting, putting things, going and collecting things from the outside, rather than just having objects already on the table, go outside, collect objects, colours, can you find colours for the environment, just giving those opportunities just to be free to move, but it's still meeting those objectives you're trying to teach them in the environment and at home. Water play is a great one. Take water outside, get as messy as you want. It can be all over, but actually they'll be moving, they'll be filling up, they'll be going to get things, different containers. It's just really about those opportunities for movement and how thinking about, have I got an activity inside? Can I take it outside? One of the biggest things here with unstructured active play is that they say children move to get the most physical activity during that unstructured active play. So it's not us as adults saying do this, do that. It's just giving them the opportunity to be free, to have the possible equipment, but just letting them practice some of these key skills, balancing. Water, again, a great one. So just letting them jump up and down in puddles. If you wanted to add some colours in, you could add food colouring. If you want to link it with your colours, what colour are we learning today? And just having them active, gardening. So they're learning about, again, some of those key skills around what plants need, but they're actually doing it physically themselves. As babies, again, that reaching, that grasping, just putting objects and stimulation around them and letting them have that free play where they want to grasp, they want to explore. Yeah, it's really important just to offer this unstructured active play where children lead their own learning, and you'll find they'll naturally do some of these key skills that we want them to, like the balancing. You know, if you put a bench out there, 9 times out of 10 the children will go and walk along it and balance along it because they'll be exploring. If you put the opportunities there, children will naturally want to be inquisitive and explore. So it's just about letting a lot of this play be child-led and making sure you get that, again, that high intensity physical activity for those preschoolers, but also making sure there's lots of opportunity for just that movement. Music, movement and dance is a great one. I mean, I don't know if you've got an Alexa at home, but a lot of the time in my kitchen we have Alexa on and my children will just dance, and it's not me saying dance away, put music on, children will naturally move, they'll naturally dance. And again, a lot of these fundamental movement skills, that twisting, that bending, that kind of transferring weight, it'll happen naturally through movement and dance. And even nursery rhymes are a great one. Act out the nursery rhymes, singing them, move into that music. And like I said, with that child development, it naturally creates that creativity, that expression, that cognitive development. So it's just thinking of different ways that you can get children up and moving, even moving through stories. So movement through, like I say, acting out stories. So rather than having the children sitting listening, have them up and just thinking about how can I change my way of thinking to ensure they're moving as much as physically possible throughout this day. And at home, it's just thinking, if you do put on Alexa, can you have a dance? Do you know what? It does us all good, having a bit of a boogie around the kitchen. I'm not ashamed to say. So,
absolutely,
you know, it's just these opportunities that you can fit into your day, again, for this more sort of unstructured time, if needed.
And that kind of thing's such fun as well with the kids, isn't it? Really, they can get involved. They can see that you're happy to be daft as well, and kind of have a bit of a laugh and a giggle with them, and it helps with the relationship as much as anything else. And
it's free,
singing,
it's easy
dancing,
to
all
do.
of that kind of thing.
Of course, and it's free. It's easy to do. You don't need any equipment. So yeah, it's a great one just to get children moving and active.
Brilliant.
I've put here about a variety of equipment. Now, this is probably more aimed at settings, because if you put the equipment out there, because I know it's a lot of parents at home who don't have this equipment, which is why, like I say, if you can get a scooter or a balance bike is great for children. Developing again those core muscles first. Balance bikes are great for getting children to develop that balance. Scooters, can you take your children to school and you're under 5, accompany you as you're going? Can you walk, scoot to the setting? But then really, if you can put out as much equipment as possible for children to explore, they'll naturally practice some of these skills if you provide the opportunities and observe and help and support where possible. So a lot of this balancing, throwing, catching, building. So yeah, it's just important that we try and get as much equipment out there for children to explore, but also a lot of natural, as much as natural for that sensory and that different type of stimulation. So it's just about getting a balance between what type of equipment and not overphasing children. But you will find when children have the equipment to explore, they generally will do their own creativity in games and naturally, like I said, do some of these skills, as long as we're there to kind of support. And if a child's not doing it right, showing them the right way to do it and doing that sort of practicing of those skills. And then this is a key one for me, get outside, walks outside. So it doesn't have to be, especially for parents, if you've got a child in the house, just getting them outside and getting them exploring to the local park. Now, one of my big things here is this idea of risk. I mean, trees are fantastic, but you might think, oh, my child's not going near a tree because they're going to hurt themselves. But actually, if you weigh up the odds of how many times your child will climb a tree and how many times they're going to fall off, it's that risk. And you've got to think that they need that risk to develop their sort of creativity, and allowing them to take their own risk and actually safely manage that risk themselves, because that's how they're going to develop more and build that resilience. It's really important we allow them to climb, we allow them to swing, we allow them to do these this risk taking, because we've become a very risk averse society, and a lot of it is due to health and safety, and I understand that, but it's really important that we let them explore and let them take their own risks. And really just getting them out in the natural outdoors. I spoke earlier about that absolute whole host of benefits. And if we provide kind of that space and that outdoor opportunity, children will reap those benefits from outdoor learning. And there's so many things at parks or in natural environments that allow for balancing, climbing, and without having to cost anything. Bubbles are another great one, where children love bubbles no matter what age, and just even blowing the bubbles, the amount of times they might reach to pop them or do a lot of the activities to kind of with the bubbles. It's a great thing that's, again, low cost. Put our children on wellies and they'll go exploring through woodland, through mud, to get those different textures. And I just think it's really important that we just try and get children outside as much as possible, and you'll reap the benefits in terms of they'll hopefully sleep better. They'll hopefully the behaviour, they'll get out, disperse so much more energy being outside. Then hopefully when they do come in, they'll be a lot calmer. Remember what I said earlier about the brain when you're outside walking and doing, so it's got so many cognitive benefits in terms of that brain development. So I just think it's really key that we do give these children as many opportunities to go outside, to go in your local park and green space, really, because the benefits are so much better than being just inside. But if you are inside, and if it is a horrible day and you think, not a chance I'm going out, which is totally understandable, we're all human, and there are some days where we just want to be inside, it's just thinking, what can I do inside? So even just having little obstacle courses here, if you've got equipment, getting children to climb over pillows. I mean, you might think, oh no, my lovely sofa, I'm not going to do it. But actually, if you think about taking the cushions off the sofa, they're great climbing things, and children will build with them, they'll climb on them. Chairs, climbing over chairs, under chairs. Again, if you're there to supervise, I'm not saying let them just have free rein, but if you're there to supervise, they will take their own risks, they'll manage it, and generally it'll be safe. It's a safe environment. It's just about letting them explore and do. I said about the active storytelling, so getting them to act out things. Now screens, there's a time and a place definitely for screens. I mean, as our behaviour is getting more sedentary and we're letting children sit more in front of screens, it's just being mindful that if it is short time, if it is sitting time, it's short, it's managed. But actually screen have so many more benefits in terms of physical activity. You can do a lot. There's so many programs and apps out there, things on the telly you can put on YouTube, where you can get them doing yoga, you can get them doing dances, you can get them doing maths activities, counting along, where they're actually moving. But you can actually probably sit there with a cup of tea while they're doing it and get that side of it. But the children are getting that screen time, but it's an effective use of screen time rather than them just sitting there in front of a screen or an iPad. So it's just being mindful that there is a place for screens, and it can be really effective use to promote physical activity. Looking at everyday objects in your house for little children, a little treasure basket of things that might be around your house, from wooden spoons to pans to just those different noises, getting them active, getting them moving, practicing some of those movements. Den building's a great one, getting sheets out, go over tables, getting them moving. Again, those gross motor movements and building, teamwork, if they're doing it together, how we're going to build a den, how's it going to stay up. And again, you should then reap the benefits of a lovely bit of play afterwards inside the den and finding things. So it's about thinking about what can I do in the home to keep these children moving, to minimise that sedentary behaviour.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Tracy. I think we're at the end of the presentation now, so I'm going to just stop sharing the screen. And I've learned so much myself, really, from all of that you've mentioned there, and just so many different kind of elements to physical movement, physical development, and that physical kind of structure for early years as well, and having that unstructured sort of stuff as well. Really important and just really interesting as well. So thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
And alongside this as well, what I will do is we've got some booklets where it's actually in stages. So you've got 0 to 3, then you've got 3 to 6 months, then you've got 6 to 12 months. all the way up to preschool age. And this will give you a whole host of more information and activities based around those key fundamental movement skills that we talked about, and actually just some practical ideas that you can do at home. There's links to books, there's links to songs. So it's a really useful resource that we'll put alongside this recording as well for people to use either in a setting, if you're an early years practitioner, or at home, because they can be done at both. So yeah, it's a really good resource that can be accessed.
That's amazing, and we'll make sure that it's all stored together. So thanks very much for the recording and everything that you've done for us in preparing all of this, Tracy. You can find this recording, tools like Tracy's mentioned, resources, and many more of our videos and podcasts on a number of our online platforms. And they include the training sections of Living Well Darlington, the Darlington Borough Council intranet, and also the Darlington Extra website. Thanks very much for joining us. Cheers.
Thank you.